From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network, coming to you for the first time ever pre-recorded here on this Monday, the 19th day of June, 2017. Big show for you today. It's the first time we've seen you in 2 weeks, so we're going to get to a lot of things. We're going to get to the recent struggles of the Mets and Yankees. Um, the NBA Finals will go over, the NHL Finals will go over, the money grab that is Mayweather McGregor, also the NHL expansion draft, which will begin on the 22nd. But we'll begin today with the NBA Finals, which a lot of news coming out of that, whether it be the Warriors being the best team in the league, best team in the history of the league. Whether or not LeBron James will ever now be on the same plateau as Michael Jordan. A lot of different storylines coming out of that. I told you at the beginning of the series that Kevin Durant needed to be the MVP of the series in order to prove that he wasn't just title chasing, that he wasn't just along for the ride, and that he genuinely was going to be an integral part of that championship team, and it's exactly what he did. Kevin Durant had the series of a lifetime. Meanwhile, LeBron looked tired. The entire team struggled. The entire Cavaliers team looked overwhelmed. This was not the typical Cavaliers team, and remember, this is LeBron James's team. He wanted Tristan Thompson, he wanted J.R. Smith, he wanted a lot of the guys on the bench, and the bench gave him absolutely zero support over the course of the series. Kyrie Irving was non existent. Kevin Love was non existent after he had a pretty decent Eastern Conference final against the Celtics. And Golden State, just as we said on the 5th when we left you, uh, it was a walk for the Warriors through the first two games. When you win 113 to 91 and then 132 to 113, that's a walk. The dagger in the series comes in game 3 when the Warriors go on an 11-0 run to win 118-113, and then you know the series is over. Now the question is, does Cleveland wake up for game 4 to at least push the series back to California for game 5? Or do they just let the Warriors complete a 16-0 postseason, and we saw what happened? It went to a game 5. Kyrie scored 40. LeBron gets a triple double, and that was their only good game of the series. Meanwhile, Kevin Durant was the focal point of the Golden State offense the entire series. Curry shot well. Draymond Green played well. And then after game 5, LeBron James has the nerve to say that he's never played on a super team. He's the one that created the super team concept. I'm taking my talents to South Beach. Guess what? That created the super team concept. And he had the nerve to sit there and say, "Yeah, I've never played on a super team, so I really, you're on one right now." Which has led to the conversation of, will LeBron ever be as good as Michael Jordan? There are statistics out there that if you put them together, that would say he's already better. Regular season wise, he is already better. Playoff wise, 5-3 in the finals compared to 6-0. 3-5 in the finals compared to 6-0. No, I don't think he's better. When it comes down to the big time, when it comes down to the clutch, LeBron just, when it comes down to the finals, LeBron has not been there. He's now what, 1-5 in his career in Cleveland in the finals? So I mean, even if you want to take, if even if you want to take those years with the Heat out, LeBron is, and just put them, compare Jordan with Chicago to LeBron with Cleveland. That really doesn't look good. They've both played in six finals with that team, with the same team. Jordan went 6-0. LeBron is 1-5. That's not good. Or is it 1-4? Actually, I believe it's 1-4. I believe he lost one in Miami. Even then, still 1-4 is not good. Compare that to 6-0. Will LeBron ever be on the same level as Michael Jordan? They're 1-1A. He's on the same level. The question is who's 1 and who's 1A, and I think this finals proved that Jordan is 1 and LeBron is 1A. And I think that's where it'll stay. Then you look at the flip side to that. Now, are the Golden State Warriors the greatest, this Golden State Warriors team, the greatest team of all time? And to be perfectly honest, I don't think so either. I don't think that's the case either. It's hard for me to sit there and say, well, this Golden State Warriors team, who has a Hall of Famer in Steph Curry, a Hall of Famer in Kevin Durant, a very good player in Klay Thompson, a very good player, possibly Hall of Famer in Draymond Green, and then whoever their center is, whether it be Bogut or Pachulia, and Iguodala, who could be a fringe Hall of Famer also. It's hard for me to say that that team is better than the 86 Celtics, who had six Hall of Famers in their roster, five of them starting. And you get reminded how good that 86 Celtics team was when you look back at when you watch the 30 for 30 that came out last week between the Celtics and the Lakers, which was absolutely fantastic, by the way. And I believe this has been said many times. You could not have found a better narrator for Boston than Donnie Wahlberg, really. You couldn't have found anybody else. Nobody at all. Donnie Wahlberg was the guy that you chose. This is the face of Boston sports for us. Ice Cube did a fantastic job. Donnie Wahlberg. I mean, really, that was a joke. But anyway, it is really hard to put this team, which has two guaranteed Hall of Famers and a lot of legendary players, up against a team with six Hall of Famers. I'm putting that 86 Celtics team ahead of this one. That, and I've been hearing a lot of this Cleveland Warriors rivalry, and it's not a rivalry. It's a competitive rivalry, yes, and the only reason why it is a competitive rivalry is because they're the only two competitive teams in the league. And you have to build something up. This rivalry will never, after these two teams fall off the top of the mountain, which they're going to do, they are going to fall off the top of the mountain at some point. After these two teams fall off the top of the mountain, they're not going to care about each other. Lakers and Celtics fans hate each other. Yankee and Red Sox fans hate each other. Mets and Phillies fans hate each other. The players hate each other. This is not a rival. This is a rivalry. This is a circumstantial rivalry, and the circumstance is they're the only two teams that have any that are competitive in the league. Everyone else is garbage. Absolute garbage. Which, going to that now, you make the point of the trade that was made earlier today, and that is the Boston Celtics have traded the number one overall pick. They moved back to number three. They've traded the number one with the 76ers. So now it's Sixers, Lakers, Celtics instead of Celtics, Lakers, Sixers. And they also get the favorably protected rights to a future first round pick from the 76ers. Now, what this does is this gives the Celtics seven first round picks in the next 3 years. They now have Philadelphia's pick this year, Philadelphia's pick whenever they want it, Boston's pick in 2018, Brooklyn's pick in 2018, Memphis's 1 to 8 pick in 2019, and the Clippers 1 to 14 pick in 2019, plus the two of their own. In an era where draft picks have been next to meaningless, the Celtics have stocked up on a lot of lottery picks over the course of these next couple years. Which I really don't think this changes the draft at all. You would have to assume now that this just moves the number one pick. It's the kid from Washington, from Boston to Philadelphia. That's it. Ball is going to be a Laker, and then the Celtics do whatever they want with the third pick and then just move it on down. So this really does not impact the draft. But honestly, it's not surprising that they would move the pick. It's really not. The fact that they wouldn't get anything in return, I think, is a little bit surprising. When you're short big men in Boston and you trade the number one overall pick and you're not getting Joel Embiid in return for that, I think is a little puzzling. But there are a couple of bigs in this draft, I believe, that could be decent. So we'll see what happens with that. But the playoffs this year overall for the NBA were an absolute bore, were an absolute disgrace, were an absolute atrocity. It'll go down as probably the one of the least memorable playoffs in history. There was one good series, and that was Boston Cleveland. That was it, and it wasn't even that good. Golden State walked through everyone. They showed now how far San Antonio has fallen. Just think the top four in the West, the Clippers four, Houston three, and San Antonio two. Those teams are a mile off of Golden State. They're a mile. None of them are going to beat that team anytime soon. San Antonio is going backwards. James Harden didn't show up when they needed him to the most. The Clippers you can't trust to win a first round series. It's a disgrace in both conferences. It's an absolute disgrace. The Celtics they are missing a couple of pieces, and within a couple of pieces they could be good enough to challenge whichever team LeBron is on. But not now. Not now. There are only two competitive teams in this league, and it's going to be it's Cleveland and Golden State. And to be perfectly honest, if this turns out to be the finals again next year, something has to happen. Something has to happen. how many times in the 30 for 30 did they say that Boston and the Lakers met in the finals in the 80s? What, 3 times? And at least one of them was in the finals every year in the 80s? Sure, you have one or two teams dominating in the finals, but they only played each other 3 times in a 4 year span. And then that was it. They had different opponents throughout the rest of the decade. You are staring down the barrel of watching the same two teams play in the finals 4 years in a row. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at the same two teams in the finals 4 consecutive years. Unless Boston does something incredible this offseason, why watch? Why watch next year? Why watch the NBA next year? Especially if you're in New York. The Knicks are a mess. The the Nets, aren't going to be good. Why watch? Why watch NBA basketball if you're a New Yorker next year? There's no reason to. Why watch the NBA next year until the playoffs? Why? There's no point in it. There's absolutely zero point. Coming off of one of the worst playoffs in recent memory, to now you're about to see it again next year. I'll tell you what, unless the NBA makes some rule changes that don't allow these teams to do this, they are in a the league's going to be in a bad way for a while, and this is just the start of it. They are going to be in a bad way. Three quarters of the teams in the league aren't competitive. Superstar players sitting out games because, oh, I'm tired. The league is an absolute disgrace and it's an absolute mess. But moving away from the NBA, we'll go to the NHL now. And the NHL, who just saw one of pretty decent final. There were a couple games in there where you thought, well, this could go either way. The crowd in Nashville was insane the entire series. It stinks that the Preds had to lose on home ice, but that crowd was incredible all series. Game 5 is the killer. Game 3, they left Pecorine in as they should have. Looked a little shaky at the start of Game 3, but turned it around and shut Pittsburgh down. And then the massacre that was Game 5 in Pittsburgh, where they're up 3-0 in the first 5 minutes. Just you could have called the series right there. Nashville wasn't coming back from that. But as we look towards the NHL draft, we also, before that, we have to look at the NHL expansion draft because of the Vegas Golden Knights. And for the two teams in New York, this is a very interesting proposition. For those of you who do not know or have not been through an expansion draft, essentially, especially in the NHL, because I think the last one was what, 95 with the Panthers. Every team gets a chance to protect 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 players. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Well, every team gets a chance. I thought it was a set number. Every team gets to protect a certain amount of players that they want to keep, and the rest of them are up for the Golden Knights to pick at their leisure. The expansion draft is going to be on the 22nd, so you're a couple days away from that. Uh, Islanders Protected players. Now the Islanders' protected players really confuse me. We'll start with the Rangers first, though. Uh, the Rangers have protected Kevin Hayes, Chris Kreider, J.T. Miller, Rick Nash, Derek Stepan, Zibanejad, Zuccarello, Holden, McDonough, Stahl, and Lundqvist, leaving guys such as Jesper Foss, Tanner Glass, Michael Grabner, Kevin Klein, all up for draft. I don't know how Michael Grabner works because Grabner's a free agent when free agency begins. So I don't know how that works. I don't know if I would assume that Vegas is going to have to sign him if they pick him, which would kind of be foolish. So those are your guys for the Rangers. So again, just to go through really quick again, the protected players for the Rangers: Hayes, Kreider, Miller, Nash, Stepan, Zibanejad, Zuccarello, Holden, McDonough, Stahl, and Lundqvist. The Islanders confuse me. Now the Rangers protected 11 players. The Islanders protect 9. Ladd, Lee, Tavares, Boychuk, Hamonic, Leddy. Those guys you would expect. The other 3 confuse me to no end. Pellick, Pullock, Grice. Those are the other 3 that they protect. This leaves Clutterbuck, Brock Nelson, and Ryan Strome up for draft. There was a time where Strome and Nelson were the future of this team. Now they're losing out on protection to Adam Pellick and Ryan Pullock. And protecting Thomas Greiss means one thing, and that is Thomas Greiss is going to be the starting goaltender for the New York Islanders next year. That's the only thing that says. Why Pellich and why Pullock and not Nelson and Strome makes no sense to me. If I'm Vegas, I'm looking at Clutterbuck, Nelson, and Strome. Those are the 3 guys I'm looking at. So I would expect one of those 3 to not be an Islander next year, and one of those 3 will be in Vegas next year. Calvin DeHaan also on the available players list. He's a guy who I would think would go. Going back to the Rangers, my thought would be Kevin Klein. Would be the guy that goes. Maybe Ranta if Vegas hasn't solved their goalie problem by the time they get their goalie situation, by the time they get to the Rangers. So that's the part that. So the Islanders really confuse me with that. If you're an Islander fan, do not expect Clutterbuck, Nelson. Do not expect either Nelson, Clutterbuck, Strome, or DeHaan to be on the team next year. It's going to be one of those 4. It has to be. And go into this season knowing that Thomas Greiss is going to be your starting goaltender. Thomas Greiss is going to be the starting goaltender. It cannot be Yaroslav Halak now. It really can't. Because you're going to put Yarrow up for draft, but then you're going to put him as the starting goaltender. You're not going to keep Grice. You're not going to start Grice after you protected him. That it's just crazy. It's stupid by the Islanders all the way around. Really going to baseball now. Actually, before we go to baseball, let's go with this quote unquote big money fight. This fight of the century between Mayweather and McGregor. If you followed the Facebook feed over the course of my vacation, which, by the way, was very hectic, I mean, we did more in New York in 10 days than my parents did in 40 years. We managed to cram in Montauk Point, the Hamptons, Brooklyn, Coney Island, a Met game, Jones Beach, Fire Island, Times Square, the Stardust Diner, Central Park, the Central Park Zoo, Little Italy, Chinatown, and the World Trade Center, all in a week and a half. And all of that stuff in Manhattan was in one day. It was a hectic trip. It was enjoyable. It was amazing. Just if you have never been to the World Trade Center Memorial and you live in New York, or if you're going to New York soon, you have to go. You have to go. The emotions, the emotions that you feel when you're standing at the monuments is it's indescribable. I was choked up and almost in tears the entire time. The museum, honestly, when you read reviews, it's $25 to go and see in person everything you've already seen on TV. It's not worth it unless you want to. It's really not worth it. Standing at the foot of World Trade Center 1 is awe-inspiring. It's an incredible building. I had to see the monuments and I had to see the survivor tree. Now, if you've never heard of the survivor tree, this is a tree that was in the courtyard of the World Trade Center that both buildings fell on, and actually survived. They took it out of the ground and rehabbed it back to enough health to actually put it back exactly where it was before 9/11. And if you can't find it, there are a bunch of trees in that courtyard right now, and if you can't find it, it's the only one with a railing around it. I asked two people where it was, and I saw a tree with a railing around it, and I said, they're not going to put a railing around a tree for no reason. So that has to be it. But the emotion of standing there at that spot, it's it brought flashbacks to everything you saw on TV. And the worst part about it is because it's a bustling city and because it is Manhattan, you hear sirens everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's sirens. And when you're standing there listening to those sirens while you're looking at those memorials, it's not a good feeling. It's really not. I was choked up and in tears because we went straight from because it was about 4 o'clock or so 5 o'clock or so when we left. Well, when we got to the World Trade Center, the 9/11 memorial, and we went to the subway that was right next to it, and we took that up to 34th Street to get to Penn. I was choked up and almost in tears halfway to Penn Station is when I finally started to get back to normal. To be there, and there's if you've never been there, you don't know there's one building there that there's one a memorial there that is for the workers, and then there's one, the other building, the other footprint of the building is all police and fire that were lost. It again, it's the emotion you cannot describe, and then to add the sirens, just it was not a good feeling. It really wasn't. But the first thing I did say though when we got there and watch and looking at the waterfall down into the memorial was I said when they built these things, they spent so much money and so much time and effort to keep the water out. Now they're pumping in how many hundreds of gallons a day? I thought that was just to lighten the mood, and then the mood came crashing back down again. But it was a fantastic trip. It was one I would do over again immediately. Um, anyway, continuing on, getting back to the Mayweather McGregor fight, April 27th, or was it the 27th or the 26th? I believe it's the 27th. Um, is the official death of boxing. This now takes away, it's August 26th. This now takes away any form of credibility from box. Any form of credibility that boxing had is now gone. Okay, it is absolutely gone. Sitting in section 210, which is upper deck in the corner, you're looking at $2,100 for this fight. Now, whoever gets this fight, I'm not sure whether it's HBO or Showtime, if they've announced who has the fight. It is going to cost them a fortune to buy, it's going to cost a fortune to buy the fight. It is going to cost a fortune for you, the foolish consumer who is actually going to pay for this fight to get it. This fight, for those of you who don't remember, this fight became because of a Twitter beef. That is that is how this started. It started with a Twitter beef. That's it. And it turned into Dana White instigating, and it turned into this, which is going to end up being the death of boxing. Mayweather Pacquiao would have been the fight of the century had it happened 5 years prior to when it did. It was a boring fight that fortunately I did not have to pay for. And I'm not going to pay for this one. I'm not going to wait in a restaurant for this one. This fight is going to be over after the second round. As far as I know, Conor McGregor has absolutely zero boxing experience in his background whatsoever. Meanwhile, Mayweather is an undefeated champion at multiple weight classes, who is a points fighter. Mayweather goes for accuracy. He goes for hits. He is not one of those guys he's not anymore at least. He's not one of those guys that's going to look to knock you out a guy like Mike Tyson. He's not going to do that. He is going to win this fight by points, and he's going to be, if he doesn't knock McGregor out because McGregor's done after 5 rounds, he's going to win the fight off of points. It is going to be a boring fight with Conor McGregor gassed after 5 or 6 rounds because he has no boxing experience behind him. He does not know how to box. McGregor's only hope is going to be try to knock Mayweather out in the first 3 rounds. That's going to be that's his only hope. He's going to have to knock him out. Otherwise, this is going to be a boring probably the most boring big money fight since Mayweather Pacquiao. Bet the mortgage on Mayweather. That's all you have to do on this. There's no way Mayweather loses this fight. Absolutely zero. I see zero way that Mayweather loses this fight. The only way if this gets past the third round, Mayweather wins. This is a money grab. This is a money fight. That's all it is. This fight is about a Twitter beef and money. That's it. This is not for charity. This is not for titles. This is because one guy said he could beat the other one up on Twitter. That's why. That's all the fight's going to be. It's going to be a disaster. It's going to be the death of boxing, which is sad because you have guys, especially out in San Diego here, you have guys like Julio Cesar Chavez and Canelo Alvarez who draw big pay-per-view buys, especially out here when they fight. When Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and Canelo Alvarez fought out here, that's all I heard out here was who's going to win between Chavez and Canelo. That's all the discussion was out here. Who was going to win that fight? And after those two stop drawing, who is there? Who does boxing have? They have no one. This is going to be the death of boxing on a national scale. Boxing will cease to exist after this fight on a national level. It will still be regional. It'll still be big with the old timers, but it will not be big with the youth. It will not. After this fight will kill boxing. Now, we move to baseball, which, as I said before, we did end up going to a Met game while we were in New York, and go figure, it was the Tuesday night game where the Mets lost 14-3 to the Chicago Cubs. Thank you, Zach Wheeler, who pitches tonight for the Mets at Dodger Stadium against Clayton Kershaw. If you're a Met fan, chalk this one up as another loss. Just chalk it up right now as a loss. Kershaw's a 9-2, 105 strikeouts, a 2.23 average ERA. Held opponents to two or fewer runs over at least 7 innings in 7 of his past 8 starts. And we are in the middle of June. Now, the one thing that could help the Mets this evening, and especially this evening, is the fact that Kershaw has given up 13 home runs this year. His career high is 16, and he's given up 6 homers in his last 4 outings. The key to that is get people on base for your home run hitters, because if Kershaw's given up home runs, which he's given up almost, on average, almost 2 a game over his last 4 starts, you have to make sure there's people on base. If you're hitting 2 solo home runs, that's not going to do it. But if you're hitting 2 3-run home runs, then now you've got something going. Or if you hit a 3-run and a 2-run, now you've got something. Because this Dodger team is dangerous. 44-26, one of the best teams in the league. Yeah, they're dangerous. One thing that might help them is that one of their big lefty bats, Adrian Gonzalez, is on the disabled list. So that should help. That and only Yasmani Grandal and Chase Utley have faced Zach Wheeler. Both of them, I might add, have a home run. Grandal is 2 for 5 with a home run. Utley has 13 at bats. He's batting 231 with a home run and 2 RBIs. Everyone else on that Dodger roster has never faced Wheeler before. On the flip side to that, you have the Mets, who have done absolutely horrid against Clayton Kershaw. The most glaring on that list is Yoenis Cespedes, who's 0 for 9 against Kershaw, and Reyes, who's 0 for 6. Any chance you see either one of them in the lineup tonight? No. Conforto's 0 for 1. This would be a good night to get him into right or into left field. Nimmo throw in right because you're not going to hit Curtis Granderson against a lefty. Or put Nimmo in center, whichever one. You're probably gonna end up putting him in right because I would have to assume Bruce tonight. Now remember, this is pre-recorded, so I don't have the lineups yet. You would have to assume that Bruce is going to play first base this evening, and Flores will play third because of the injury to Cabrera. You're not going to hit Duda against the lefty. You saw what he did last week against John Lester. I saw it in person. He was hard. He was embarrassing. That and he's batting 091 in 11 at bats against Kershaw. You're not going to play Duda tonight. So you would have to assume Conforto's in left, Nimmo's in right. That, or if Cespedes does play, even though he's 0 for 9 against Kershaw, Conforto's in right. You'll see either Matt Reynolds or TJ Rivera at second because of the injury to Walker. Reyes at short, Bruce at first. And I would throw Rivera's 2 for 8 against Kershaw with 2 RBIs, but I throw d'Arnaud out there. He hasn't faced him yet. You never know. You never know what'll happen. And the only reason why Rivera is 2 for 8 is because he played with the Padres for how long? Well, like 3 or 4 years. So he had a chance to face him at least. So that's it tonight. The Mets and Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. A little bit later on tonight. Look for the lineups on our Facebook page. Meanwhile, the Yankees, who embarrassed themselves on the West Coast this week, are now even with the Red Sox atop the American League East after winning 5 in a row. They've now given that back and have lost 6 in a row. And on that 5-game winning streak, scoring 8 or more runs in every single one of those 5 games. 8-0, 9-1, 8-2, 16-3, 14-3 on the 5-game winning streak. Then you go out west, you increase that to 6 games, beating the Angels 5-3, and then you lose the next 6. So you win 6 and then give them all back immediately after. Tonight off, travel night, coming back from Oakland to New York. Fine. Readjust. Get your head back on straight because now you have to play the Angels and the Rangers at home. The Angels, who beat you late a couple times, and then the Texas Rangers, who I believe the Yankees have not yet seen this year. No, the Yankees have not yet seen the Rangers this year. Next time the Yankees will see the Rangers after this will be not July, September. So they'll see Texas in September, middle of September, after this. Good news for the Yankees though. They get Aroldis Chapman back after being on the disabled list, so that'll help pump up the back end of that bullpen. Which the biggest problem for the Yankees over this West Coast swing were late game losses. They lost 3 of those 4 games to Oakland late by 1 run. First game 8-7, 7-6 the second game, and then the last game was 4-3. So you're losing late, you're losing by 1 run. Chapman will be a very welcome addition back to that bullpen, especially to face the Angels who beat you late twice. That, and it's almost sickening how Aaron Judge can seemingly hit a home run on demand now. The guy's what, 23 home runs, 53 RBIs this year. And he's gotten to the point where he can hit a home run on demand, which is insane how he's done that. Just this month, he's hit 6 home runs. Just this month, he's hit 6 home runs. He hit 7 in May and 10 in April. That's just your breakdown. He's hit 6 in June, and there's still 12 days left in June. 11 games. He has been on fire. He has been seemingly unstoppable. The kid can hit. He is going to be a fantastic hitter for years to come. Sanchez, he is nowhere close to the player he was last year. Greg Bird has been hurt, so you don't know what he is yet. But Aaron Judge is, the kid's got power. He can hit a home run seemingly on demand, and he can hit it a mile. What did he do in, what was it? Who was it against? It was, oh my goodness, who did the Yankees play just before they went on the road trip? It was against Baltimore. What, he hit a 496-foot home run against Baltimore? It's insane what he has done with the bat this year. It's been absolutely incredible. So we're getting down to the end of the program today. We're going to have Krusha on at some point this week for the first time since, oh God, probably January or so was the last time Krusha was on. He did want to come on, what was it, 2 weeks ago? But he didn't know I was in New York. So we are going to try to get Krusha on this week. So the Mets are going to be playing the Dodgers this evening. After a 5-1 win yesterday where DeGrom looks like he has come all the way back. Yankees will play the Angels. That series will start tomorrow, and the Red Bulls and New York City FC will face each other again on Saturday. New York City FC on Saturday, the 17th, beating the Seattle Sounders 2-1, and the Red Bulls beating the Philadelphia Union yesterday 2-0. Both of those teams will play each other on the 24th. So, with that, we thank you very much for joining, and I will be back tomorrow live. I will see you then, and have a fantastic day.